Welcome to the Alcohol Minimalist podcast. I'm your host, Molly Watts. If you want to change your drinking habits and create a peaceful relationship with alcohol, you're in the right place. This podcast explores the strategies I use to overcome a lifetime of family alcohol abuse, more than 30 years of anxiety and worry about my own drinking, and what felt like an unbreakable daily drinking habit. Becoming an alcohol minimalist means removing excess alcohol from your life so it doesn't remove you from life. It means being able to take alcohol or leave it without feeling deprived. It means to live peacefully, being able to enjoy a glass of wine without feeling guilty and without needing to finish the bottle. With science on our side, we'll shatter your past patterns and eliminate your excuses. Changing your relationship with alcohol is possible. I'm here to help you do it. Let's start now. Well, hello and welcome or welcome back to the Alcohol Minimalist podcast with me, your host, Molly Watts, coming to you from, well, I'm going to have to just go with typical Oregon. If you hear it in my voice, I'm still recovering. I've been sick pretty much all week, so I've been inside most of the time. I can't account for what's been going on in the weather too much, and I haven't even really been paying too much attention to the forecasts because I've been inside. So I assume it's typical. I did pay attention last night when the Grand Floral Starlight Parade, the new combined parade for Portland Rose Festival, was taking place. We were showery all day yesterday, but we cleared up in the evening time and it was a dry event. So I'm sure Rose Festival officials were very happy about that because it is not always the case that Rose Festival remains dry. All right. So here we are. I'm going to come back. I was supposed to be back last week with a live new podcast and I couldn't do it because I was sick and my voice is still kind of weak, but we're going to power through. We're going to hope I make it. I've got some hot tea and I am ready to go. And I'm really excited because I've got this idea and I had, like I said, it was all ready to go last week, but I am ready to record it now. And I think it's great for the rest of this month as we head into July, which will be for me a more dry July. I'm still working out the details of what an offer or what program or event I'm going to have for this group, but there will be something. I just don't know exactly what it's going to be yet. Stay tuned. Next week, I'll have more details. And as we head towards a more dry July, I wanted to share this series because it was the direct result of a question that I asked in the Alcohol Minimalist Facebook group. And that is, and I just asked it fairly recently, it is, what is the hardest part of changing your drinking habits? And the answers were all over the place in the best possible way. People talked about cooking dinner and wanting a glass of wine. They talked about socializing in places where alcohol is available, especially with friends who are not mindful drinkers. They mentioned weekends, vacations, boredom, stress, physical pain, hot weather, last-minute changes in plans. And one person said that the hardest part is snapping back into awareness about how many beers they've had when they're having fun. So first of all, if you relate to any of those, you are very much not alone. I think most of us can look at that list and find at least one situation that feels familiar. Maybe it's not cooking with wine for you, but it's sitting on the patio in warm weather. Maybe it's not drinking at parties, but it's drinking after everyone else has gone to bed. Maybe it's not vacations, and instead it's Friday nights. The details change, but the experience is very human. And when I looked at all of those answers together, I realized they are such a perfect example of something that I've talked about before here on the podcast, and it's my alcohol core beliefs. Now, I've done episodes on each of the alcohol core beliefs before, but I haven't talked about them much lately, and I think they are worth coming back to because these beliefs are what fuel our desire to drink. They are the beliefs underneath the habits, and they are the beliefs like alcohol helps me relieve more stress. It's the belief that alcohol makes things more fun. It's the belief that alcohol creates connection. the belief that alcohol is my reward, or that alcohol keeps me going. Those alcohol core beliefs show up in very ordinary moments, like cooking dinner, like sitting home alone, like going to a party, getting through a hard day, or being on vacation. And when we don't recognize the belief underneath the urge, we tend to make the trigger the whole problem. Now, I want you to pay attention when I say that. When we don't recognize the belief underneath the urge, we tend to make the trigger the whole problem, which is exactly what my Facebook group shared. We say cooking dinner is my trigger, or vacations are what is the challenge. Stress is what is my challenge. And listen, there is value in knowing the situations where you are more likely to want to drink. That kind of awareness absolutely matters. But the trigger or that challenge is not the whole story. The glass of wine while cooking is not just about cooking. The drinks on vacation are not just about vacation. And the urge after a stressful day is not just about stress. It's also about what your brain believes alcohol will do for you in that moment. That's what we're going to explore in this series. We're going to take the hardest parts of drinking less and look at them through the lens of alcohol core beliefs. Not so we can shame ourselves for having these beliefs, but so we can understand them, challenge them, and ultimately change them. So today, let's start with the one that shows up when life feels stressful, because this is the thing that I shared with everybody. Was this? I actually shared it in its belief form, but and how that belief was what, but people didn't catch that part. But today we're going to talk about when alcohol helps me relieve stress. When that's the core belief, alcohol helps me relieve stress. The belief often sounds very simple. It sounds like I need a drink. But underneath that sentence, there is usually something more specific. It might be I need to unwind. I need to turn off my brain. I need something to take the edge off. I need to mark the end of this day. I need to relax. I need something that is just for me. And I want to be very clear from the beginning. The desire for relief is not the problem. Wanting to feel better after a hard day makes sense. Wanting comfort when you're in pain makes sense. Wanting your nervous system to settle down after a stressful interaction totally makes sense. The question is not, why do I want relief? Of course you want relief. The better question is alcohol actually giving me the kind of relief I believe it is? That is where we have to get curious. Not judgmental, but curious. Because for most people, the belief alcohol helps me relieve stress did not come out of nowhere. It usually has some lived experience behind it. You had a hard day, you poured a drink, and for a little while, you felt different. Maybe your shoulders dropped. Maybe your thoughts got a little quieter. Maybe the urgency softened. Your brain noticed that. Your brain learned from that. And because the brain is very interested in what creates quick change in state, it stored that information for later. This is one of the reasons I don't find it helpful to say alcohol doesn't relax you at all. That does not match many people's lived experience. And when we say things that do not match lived experience, people usually stop listening. Alcohol can create a short-term shift in how you feel. The science supports that. Alcohol is a central nervous system depressant, and one of the ways it affects the brain is by increasing the effect of GABA, which is the brain's primary inhibitory neurotransmitter. A simple way to think about GABA is just like it acts like a brake system for the brain. Alcohol also affects glutamate, which is one of the brain's primary excitatory neurotransmitters.
Think of it like the gas pedal. So in a very simplified explanation, alcohol presses the brake more and reduces some of the gas at the same time, which is part of why it can feel calming, sedating, or anxiety reducing at first. Research on alcohol's neurobiology consistently discusses alcohol's effects on GABA, glutamate, dopamine, and other neurotransmitter systems that are involved in intoxication, reinforcement, and dependence. So when someone says, I feel calmer after a drink, they may not and probably are not imagining that. There is a real-time, short-term neurochemical shift. But here's the key distinction for today's episode. A state change is not the same thing as stress relief. That is the part our brains tend to skip over. Alcohol can change your state. It can interrupt discomfort. It can blunt emotional intensity. It can create sedation. It can make you care a little less for a little while. But that is very different from solving the stress, completing the stress cycle, restoring your nervous system, improving your resilience, and helping tomorrow's version of you feel better. It may have changed the channel. That is not the same thing as fixing the signal. And this is why alcohol helps me relieve stress is such a powerful alcohol core belief. It contains just enough immediate evidence to feel true. You are stressed, you drink, you feel different, and your brain says, see, that worked. But your brain is making a very short-term argument. It is paying attention to the first 30 minutes, not the full effect across the evening, the night, the next morning, the next day, or the next week or decades if you're like me, who had a daily drinking habit that was absolutely centered around alcohol helps me relieve stress. And that wider lens matters. One of the ways I like to think about it is that alcohol often borrows calm from tomorrow. You may feel the initial exhale tonight, but your body still has to metabolize the alcohol. Your brain still has to rebalance after the chemical shift, and your sleep and stress systems still have to respond to what alcohol did. And tomorrow always comes to collect. Let's talk about that rebalancing for a minute, because your brain and body are always working to maintain homeostasis, the balance. When alcohol pushes your nervous system in one direction towards sedation, inhibition, reduced alertness, your brain does not just passively accept that and call it a day. It compensates, it adjusts, it tries to bring the system back to balance. With repeated alcohol exposure, the brain can adapt to alcohol's presence, and when alcohol wears off, that adaptation can leave the system more activated. And this is one of the reasons that people can experience rebound anxiety, irritability, restlessness, sleep disruption after drinking. In more severe cases, withdrawal from alcohol can be medically dangerous. So I always want to be clear. If someone is physically dependent on alcohol, they should absolutely get medical guidance before stopping. But even for people who would not describe themselves as physically dependent, there can still be a milder rebound effect that shows up as feeling anxious, restless, emotionally flat, or oddly uneasy the next day. Many people have experienced this without necessarily connecting it to alcohol. They drink to relax at night, but they wake up at 3 a.m. and with their heart beating faster than usual, or they wake up the next day feeling a little emotionally flat, like they have less patience, less focus, less ability to handle ordinary stress. And maybe they didn't drink what they would consider a lot, but they still feel a little off. And that is part of the problem with using alcohol as stress relief. The cost is often delayed, and because the cost is delayed, the brain does not always attribute that to alcohol. Instead, the brain wakes up the next morning and says, I'm stressed, I'm anxious, I'm tired, I need relief. And then the same belief gets another chance to run the show again. Stress leads to drinking, Drinking creates the short-term state change. The after effects of alcohol can leave you more tired, more anxious, less emotionally regulated, and less rested. Then you experience the next day as more stressful, and your brain says, see, we need a drink. When we only look at the first part of the loop, alcohol looks like relief. And when we look at the whole loop, alcohol may actually be participating in the stress it claims to solve. And that is such an important shift. Alcohol may not simply be the thing you use because you are stressed. Alcohol may be one of the reasons your stress feels harder to manage tomorrow.
Hey, it's Molly, and I'm here to talk to you about Sunnyside Med. That's right, Sunnyside has a new program that they've been offering that includes medication that can quiet alcohol cravings. It's called naltrexone, and it works by making alcohol less rewarding in your brain. And Sunnyside now offers access to naltrexone 100% online and combined with personalized care. Thousands of people have already joined Sunnyside Med and are cutting their drinking nearly in half. Sunnyside Med doesn't just give you a pill. It is a whole support system to help you reach your goals. I really want you to check it out, so visit sunnyside.co/minimalist to learn more and see if you qualify today.
Now, let's bring in cortisol and the stress response. Cortisol is one of the body's primary stress hormones, and it's part of the HPA axis, which is shorthand for the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, and that is one of the body's major stress response systems. Alcohol interacts with this system in complicated ways, but research shows that alcohol exposure and withdrawal can affect the HPA axis activity and cortisol regulation. And when you translate that into everyday language, it means that alcohol does not only touch the relaxation system, it also interacts with the body's stress system. So while alcohol may feel like it turns stress down lower in the moment, the after effects can involve more activation of the very systems that you were trying to quiet. And this is one explanation for that morning after emotional discomfort, the anxiety that we were just talking about. And sometimes there is a specific reason, right? Maybe you drank way more than you planned. You said something you wish you hadn't. You feel disappointed in yourself. But sometimes the anxiety seems to arrive before the thoughts. It is just there in your body. You open your eyes and feel like something is wrong before you even know what you're worried about. And when that happens, it's very tempting to think, I'm just an anxious person. My life is stressful, or I need something to take the edge off. But if alcohol is increasing the recovery burden on your brain and body, then we have to be honest about the possibility that the thing you used for relief last night may be part of why today feels harder. Again, not with shame, not with drama, just with honesty and curiosity. Because this is where real change begins. We stop asking only, did alcohol make me feel better for a little while? And we start asking, what was the total cost of that relief? This is especially important when it comes to sleep, because sleep is one of those big things in our lives, and it's one of the big places where alcohol tricks us. A lot of people believe that alcohol helps them sleep. And if by helps me sleep, they mean helps me fall asleep faster, there is, of course, some truth there. Alcohol can make you sleepy. It can feel like it turns your brain off. It can reduce sleep onset latency, which means it may shorten the amount of time that it takes to fall asleep. But falling asleep faster is not the same thing as sleeping better. I've said this, I've talked about it numerous times on the podcast, but alcohol disrupts sleep architecture, and it changes the normal pattern of sleep stages. It suppresses REM sleep, it increases sleep fragmentation later in the night, and it contributes to poorer sleep quality overall. And this matters because sleep is not just rest. Sleep is emotional regulation. Sleep is stress resilience. Sleep is appetite regulation. Sleep is memory, learning, immune function, and decision making. And when you sleep poorly, your brain does not approach the next day with the same resources. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain involved, our beautiful, brilliant human part of our brain, does not work as well when you are tired. Your emotional brain tends to be more reactive. Your stress threshold is lower, and cravings feel a lot louder. So when we say alcohol helped me relax last night, we also need to ask ourselves, how did it affect the brain that had to wake up today and make decisions? Because if alcohol helped you fall asleep but disrupted the quality of your sleep, then it did not actually support stress resilience. It may have given you sedation, but it did not give you restoration. One of the biggest reasons the belief alcohol helps me relieve stress deserves to be challenged, not because you are wanting relief, but because alcohol is often selling you relief while quietly undermining the systems, like sleep, that would help you handle stress better in the first place. Now let's talk about dopamine and learning for a minute, because this is where belief becomes a habit. We've said it many times before on the podcast, your brain is a prediction machine. It is always learning from patterns. If you feel stressed and then you drink and feel a change, your brain learns that alcohol predicts relief. Dopamine is deeply involved in reward learning and motivation. It helps the brain pay attention to cues, rewards, and repeated patterns of behavior. Alcohol also affects dopamine pathways involved in reinforcement, which helps explain why the brain can learn to pursue alcohol again when familiar cues or feelings show up. So imagine this very ordinary pattern. You feel stressed at the end of the day. You pour a glass of wine. You feel a shift. Your brain registers that helped. Then the next stressful day comes, and before you have even consciously thought through your options, your brain predicts relief from wine. And that prediction creates desire. This is why I say all the time that the urge to drink is not always evidence that you truly need a drink. Often the urge means that your brain has learned to predict a reward, a release, a state change from alcohol. And that is not a character flaw, it is learning. And what we have learned, we can unlearn, right? We talk about rewiring the brain. Learned associations require repetition to stay strong, and they require different repetitions to weaken. Every time stress is followed by alcohol, the association gets reinforced. Hard days equal wine. Emotional upset equals pour the drink. Plans change, well, you might as well forget it. Hot weather equals cocktail. Overwhelmed equals take the edge off. After enough repetitions, these things do not feel like beliefs anymore. They feel like reality. But these beliefs are not absolute truths. They are practiced thoughts, and changing them requires noticing and challenging the unconscious thoughts that support them. That is the work. So let's talk about what to do in the moment when the belief shows up. And this process is actually on the Alcohol Core Beliefs mind map. So you can download that. I will put a link in the show notes, but this is my 4S new belief system, and it is see, soothe, separate, shift. And let's talk about that and walk through this specific belief. I need, alcohol helps me relieve stress. First, you got to see. And this means noticing the thought underneath the urge, not just I want a drink, but the belief that is making the drink seem necessary. Maybe the thought is I need to relax. Maybe it's I cannot deal with this. Maybe it's this day was awful. I deserve wine. Maybe it's, I need something to take the edge off. Seeing sounds like this. I'm having the thought that alcohol will help me relieve stress. So do you see that? That is seeing. That's the thought for seeing. I am having the thought that alcohol will help me relieve stress. That simple sentence creates space. You are no longer fully inside the belief. You are observing it. And that matters because we cannot change what we cannot see. I say it all the time. Then we're going to move on to soothe. This is where you normalize the thought without automatically obeying it. You might say, of course my brain is offering up wine right now. This is a familiar pattern. Or you might say, of course I want relief. I am tired. Or you might say, of course this urge feels strong. I have practiced this connection. Soothe does not mean you agree that the thought is true. It means that you stop attacking yourself for having it. That matters because shame is not a good teacher. Shame usually increases the desire to escape, and when the whole problem is that your brain associates alcohol with escape, shame is not going to help. The third step is separate. This is where you separate the facts from the story. The fact may be, I had a hard day. The story may be, alcohol is what I need. The fact may be, my body feels tense. The story may be, wine is the only way I can relax. The brain loves to blend facts and stories together, especially when the story is familiar, but they are not the same. You may absolutely be stressed. That does not automatically mean alcohol is required. And finally, the last S is shift. This is not about leaping into some fake affirmation that you do not believe. You do not have to go from, I need wine, to, I love sparkling water and deep breathing more than anything in the world. Your brain will definitely reject that. A shift is simply the next best believable thought. It might be, I want relief and I can create relief before I decide whether to drink. It might be, alcohol may change my state, but it does not erase the stress. It might be, I do not have to borrow calm from tomorrow. It might just be, I can pause for 10 minutes. When you pair that thought with one action, that's where the real magic is. It's not a huge life overhaul. It's not a perfect evening routine with candles, meditation, meal prep, and a gratitude journal. It's just one small action. Drink water. Eat something. Step outside. Change your clothes. Lie down for 10 minutes. Turn on some music. Take a shower. Make an easier dinner. Use heat or ice if you've got some pain. Text somebody. Do something. One small action when you shift that believable thought. The goal is not to prove that you will never drink again. The goal is to teach your brain that stress does not automatically equal alcohol. And that is how we begin rewiring the belief. And I want to say something that may sound small, but it's actually huge. Even if you pause, do the process, create some real relief, and then still decide to have a drink, that is different from drinking automatically from the belief that is alcohol is required. Because you interrupted the loop. You created space between stress and alcohol, and you gave your brain new evidence. You practiced relief before drinking. You showed yourself that the urge is not an emergency and that the first thought does not have to make the decision. That is how sustainable change happens, not through white knuckling, not through shame, not through rules that you keep trying, but through awareness, through repetition and new evidence. New thoughts, new feelings, new actions, new results. So here is the practice for this week. Choose one moment where you commonly believe that alcohol helps you relieve stress. Maybe it's after work. Maybe it's while cooking. Maybe after an argument. Maybe just because you're hot. Summer. Before you drink, pause and finish this sentence. I need a drink because. I need a drink because I'm annoyed. I need a drink because I do not want to feel this. I need a drink because I deserve it. I need a drink because this is how I relax. Once you have the sentence, walk it through our 4 steps. See the thought. Soothe the thought. Separate the fact from the story. And shift to the next best believable thought. Then, do one thing that actually addresses that need, just one, and notice what happens. You may still want the drink. That's okay. The goal is not perfection. The goal is awareness. The goal is to interrupt the automatic belief and to gather new evidence. Because over time, your brain can learn, I can feel stressed and not drink. I can relax without alcohol. I can care for myself without borrowing calm from tomorrow. That's what a peaceful relationship with alcohol is all about. That's how you become an alcohol minimalist. So as we wrap up today, remember, wanting relief is human. Wanting comfort is human. Wanting to turn off your brain after a hard day is human. And there's nothing wrong with you because alcohol became associated with relief. But you are allowed to question whether alcohol is actually giving you what you think it's giving you. And when you start asking that question honestly, without shame, you can create space for something better than temporary escape. You create space for real relief. That's what we're practicing around here. That's what the alcohol core beliefs are. And like I said, I'll link it in the show notes. You can grab a copy of the alcohol core beliefs mind map if you'd like to. Next time, we're going to talk about the alcohol core belief. Alcohol makes things more fun and alcohol creates connection. Those 2 core beliefs together. Because for so many people, the hard part of changing their drinking habits is not drinking alone at home. It's drinking less when everyone else is drinking more. Oh my gosh, you guys, my voice made it, and I am so happy about that. Choose peace, and I will see you on Thursday.
Thanks for listening to the Alcohol Minimalist podcast. Take something you learned from this week's episode and put it into action. Changing your drinking habits and creating a peaceful relationship with alcohol is 100% possible. You can stop worrying, stop feeling guilty about overdrinking, and become someone who desires alcohol less. I work with people in 2 different ways, and you can learn about them over at my website. Go to www.mollywatts.com/workwithme or reach out to me directly. Shoot me an email, molly@mollywatts.com. We'll jump on a call and decide what might work best for you. This podcast is really just the beginning of our conversation. Let's keep it going. If there's one thing I know, it's that change is way easier when you stop trying to do it alone.